Maya is 34 years old. She's a hypothetical example, but her situation shows up in survey after survey of working Americans in their 30s. She has a marketing job she's good at, a paycheck that lands every other Friday, and a calendar that's full from 8 in the morning until whenever the last meeting ends. One night, tired and half paying attention to her own laptop, she opens a blank document and starts building something she's wanted for months. A simple set of planning templates for other marketers, the kind of thing she wishes someone had handed her 3 years earlier. She finishes it over a few weekends. She lists it for $19. For the first 2 weeks, nobody buys it. Then, quietly, without her doing anything new, 3 people do. Then 5. She checks the number the way you check something you don't quite believe. It isn't much. It's $19, then $38, then $95. But it's the first dollar she has ever earned that didn't come from trading an hour of her time for it. She doesn't know it yet, sitting there refreshing a sales dashboard on a Tuesday night, but she has just built something her paycheck never could. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Across the country, in a different industry entirely, a man named Ray is having a version of the same experience a decade later. Ray is 46, an operations manager with almost 20 years in logistics. A former colleague calls him one afternoon, not for a job, but for advice. 3 hours of his time to help a small company fix a supply chain problem Ray has solved a dozen times before. Ray hesitates, then says yes. 3 hours later, he has a check for $600 and a strange feeling he can't quite name. It isn't the money, not really. It's that the exact same knowledge he uses every day at his day job, the knowledge his employer pays him one fixed salary for, no matter how much value it creates, is apparently worth paying for on its own, separately, by someone else. Maya and Ray don't know each other. They're in different decades of life and different industries entirely. But they've both just stumbled onto the same financial truth, almost by accident, and this video is about what that truth actually means, why it matters at every stage from your 30s through your 60s, and how it works whether you're a man or a woman, whether your version of it is a digital product, a few hours of consulting, or something else entirely. Here's the central question. Maya's $19 templates and Ray's $600 afternoon look like small, almost forgettable events. So why do people who build a habit out of moments like these often end up in a completely different financial position 20 years later than people who never do, even when both started with the exact same salary? The answer isn't really about the templates or the consulting call themselves. It's about what those two things represent, and what they teach you about how money actually works once you understand it a little more clearly. To understand that, it helps to know that not all income behaves the same way, even though a bank account doesn't show the difference. There's earned income, the money you receive for actively working, your salary, your hourly wage, the fee for a specific hour of consulting. There's portfolio income, money your investments generate on their own, interest, dividends, the growth in a retirement account. And there's a category economists and the tax code both recognize as passive income, money generated by something you built once, that keeps producing value without you trading additional hours for it every single time. A rental property, royalties, or, increasingly for ordinary working Americans, a digital product like Maya's templates that gets sold to a new customer while she's asleep, in a meeting, or on vacation. Ray's consulting is still earned income, technically, because he's trading his time for money just like his day job. But it's earned income he controls completely, priced by him, scheduled by him, separate entirely from the one employer his salary depends on. That distinction, between income tied to one single source and income you generate and control yourself, is the real difference between Maya and Ray's stories, and the version of this story where nothing changes. None of this is unusual or rare. It's actually become one of the more common financial patterns in the country. Government labor data shows more Americans were working multiple jobs in late 2025 than at any point since the statistic started being tracked in 1994, close to 9 million people. Separately, surveys focused specifically on side income found that nearly half of Americans, across age groups and both genders, reported earning some money outside their main job in the past year. And the type of side income matters. Delivery driving and part-time retail work tend to produce modest, fairly capped earnings, useful, but limited by the same problem a salary has. Your hours are the ceiling. Freelancing and digital products behave differently. Independent research from freelance platforms found that U.S. freelancers earned close to $100,000 a year on average in 2025, and separate research counted more than 5.5 million independent workers who cleared six figures that year from consulting, freelance, and similar work. That's not everyone's outcome, and it's not guaranteed. But it shows the ceiling on this kind of income isn't fixed the way a single paycheck ceiling is. It helps to see the actual math behind why this matters, because the numbers involved are smaller and more ordinary than people expect. Suppose, like Maya, you sell something for $19, and it finds 10 buyers a month, which is a modest, realistic number for a small digital product with almost no marketing behind it. That's $190 a month, or a little under $2,300 a year. On its own, that's not life-changing. But notice what's different about it compared to picking up 10 extra hours at a part-time job for the same amount of money. The templates don't need Maya to be awake, available, or even paying attention while they sell. If she spends a weekend improving them, doubling the number of buyers doesn't require doubling her hours, the way a second job would. That's the entire difference between earned income and the kind of income Maya and Ray have started building. One requires more of your time to produce more money, the other can grow without a matching increase in hours. It doesn't mean the second kind is easy, or guaranteed, or without real effort up front. It means the relationship between effort and income eventually stops being one-to-one, which a single paycheck, by definition, never does. None of these numbers are meant to suggest everyone should quit their job and start a business. Most people shouldn't, and most successful side income never replaces the main paycheck. It sits alongside it. What the numbers actually show is something quieter and more useful, that a meaningful share of Americans in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s have found a second source of income that didn't require starting over, just required using something they already knew how to do and pricing it separately from their employer. A common misconception is that building a second income stream means either an enormous time commitment or a completely new skill set, something only younger people with more energy or more free time can realistically pull off. That's not quite what the evidence shows. Maya's templates took a handful of weekends, built from something she already knew how to do at her day job. Ray's consulting used 2 decades of expertise he already had, packaged differently. The skill in both cases already existed. What changed wasn't the knowledge, it was the decision to separate that knowledge from the one employer who had, until then, been the only person paying for it. This is true whether you're 32 or 58. A 58-year-old with 3 decades of experience in accounting, teaching, healthcare, sales, or a trade has more raw material for consulting or a digital product than almost anyone in their 20s. Age isn't the obstacle people assume it is. In many cases, it's the advantage. There's a practical detail worth understanding here too, because it trips people up more than almost anything else. The income tax system doesn't treat Maya's templates or Ray's consulting the same way it treats their paychecks, even though both are technically forms of earned income. A regular salary gets reported by an employer, with taxes already withheld from every check. Income from a digital product or consulting typically gets reported by the person earning it, often on a form the IRS calls a Schedule C, and it usually comes with the ability to deduct real business expenses, software, a portion of a laptop, even a home office, before it's taxed, along with the responsibility to set aside money for self-employment tax, rather than having it withheld automatically. None of this is complicated once you know it's there, but it surprises people every year who assume side income works exactly like a paycheck and then find out, usually at tax time, that it doesn't. Understanding this early avoids an unpleasant surprise and, in many cases, actually keeps more of that second income in your pocket. Because expenses that reduce a paycheck's usefulness rarely get deducted, while expenses tied to a side income legitimately can be. Here is the realization that matters most in this whole video. Maya and Ray didn't get lucky, and they didn't discover some secret. What actually happened is that they each, without fully realizing it in the moment, separated two things that most people keep permanently fused together: their expertise and their employer. A salary ties your knowledge to one buyer, at one price, on one schedule, decided by someone else. The moment you package that same knowledge into something sellable on your own terms, a product, a service, a consulting hour, you've created a second income source that behaves completely differently from your paycheck, because it isn't capped by someone else's budget or someone else's decision about your raise this year. This isn't a promise that a side income will replace your job, or that any specific idea will work, or that you'll earn any particular amount. Nobody honest can promise that. But there are practical questions worth answering for yourself. What do you already know how to do well enough that someone else would pay for it directly, separate from your employer? Could that knowledge become something sold once and delivered many times, the way Maya's templates are, or something sold by the hour on your own terms, the way Ray's consulting is? How much of your current financial security depends entirely on one employer's decisions, and how would that change if even a small second income existed alongside it? These questions don't have one right answer. They're meant to reveal how much of your financial life currently runs through a single pipe. If you're in your 30s, you have the most room for the compounding effect of this to work in your favor. Whether that's a digital product slowly building an audience over years, or simply gaining enough expertise that consulting becomes realistic later. The habit of separating your value from your salary, started now, has decades to grow. If you're in your 40s, you likely have real expertise already, and the biggest opportunity is often just repackaging what you already do professionally into something sellable on the side. A course, a template, a few hours of paid advice a month, without needing to learn anything new. If you're in your 50s, the calculation shifts slightly toward income that requires less ongoing time and more of what you've already built, since your priority is often protecting retirement timelines rather than taking on a second full workload. And if you're in your 60s, at or near retirement, this same idea often shows up differently, as a way to keep some income flowing on your own schedule, a few hours of consulting a month, an existing digital product that still sells, without needing to return to full-time work or draw down savings as quickly. Years after that first $19 sale, Maya's templates have quietly become a small but real second income, not enough to replace her job, but enough that a slow year at work, a smaller bonus, an unexpected expense doesn't hit her finances the way it used to, because her entire financial picture no longer runs through one single pipe. Ray still works his day job too. He never turned consulting into a full business. But those occasional afternoons, priced on his own terms, have become both extra income and something else harder to measure. Proof to himself that his expertise has value independent of any single employer's opinion of him. Neither of their stories is dramatic. Neither of them got rich overnight. What changed for both of them wasn't the size of any single sale or consulting check. It was that their financial life stopped depending entirely on one source they didn't control. Before we get to what to actually do, it's worth sitting with why this is worth wanting in the first place, because motivation fades a lot faster than a good reason does. First, your salary has a ceiling that isn't set by your effort. It's set by someone else's budget, someone else's raise cycle, someone else's decision about what your role is worth this year. A second income is the one lever in your financial life that you actually control the price of. Second, one income source means one point of failure. A layoff, a company restructuring, a health issue, an industry downturn, any one of those can remove your entire income overnight if it's the only thing you have, but it can only ever remove part of it if you've built something else alongside it. Third, the expertise you already have is worth more outside your job than most people realize, because you've already paid the cost of learning it, years of it, and a second income doesn't require starting over. It requires finding a second buyer for something you already know. Fourth, small amounts compound in ways that feel invisible in the moment and obvious in hindsight. The same modest effort that turns into $200 a month in year one can, given enough years and enough reinvestment, become something that meaningfully changes your options later, and the only real cost of waiting is the years you don't get back. Before we close, here are 4 things you can actually start doing this week, whether you're 32 or 62, whether your version of this looks like Maya's or like Ray's. First, write down one thing you already know how to do well enough that someone outside your job would pay you for it directly, not a new skill, something you already have. Second, decide which format fits that skill better, something built once and sold repeatedly, like a template, guide, or short course, or something sold by the hour on your own schedule, like consulting or freelance work, because the two require very different amounts of ongoing time. Third, set a small, boring, non-negotiable time block, even 2 hours a week, to actually build or offer it, since almost every side income that eventually mattered started with hours that didn't feel significant at the time. Fourth, price it and offer it to just one real person or list it in one real place this month, because an idea that only exists in your head produces exactly as much income as no idea at all. If your paycheck disappeared tomorrow, is there anything else in your financial life that would still bring in money next month? That's worth sitting with. If this video helped you think about your income a little differently, do us a favor. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who could use it too. A friend, a coworker, anyone who's ever felt like their paycheck was the only thing standing between them and everything else. We make these videos to take complicated financial topics and explain them through real stories and simple examples, and the best way to keep them coming is knowing they're actually helping people.